it is my pleasure to introduce you to our final speaker, Kara Peterson, who is the co founder of Describe AI. Kara is an advocate for using AI to create social impact. And today she is going to be sharing ways that AI can bridge gaps and creating opportunities for everyone. So, welcome to the stage, Kara, and I am so excited to learn from you.
Thank you so much, Alana. I'm really, really excited to be here, and I am over in beautiful and sunny Boston, Massachusetts, where it's actually raining. So hopefully your weather's better. So thank you so much for having me here today. As mentioned, I am Kara Peterson. I am the co-founder of descrybe.ai, which is a legal research company founded in Boston about a year ago. I have a marketing background myself, so I'm not the technology side of things, but I am having so much fun learning about AI with all the rest of you. And I just have to say huge hats off to the work that they're doing at MIA to upscale so many women. Bravo, it's amazing. Okay, so as mentioned, I'm here to talk to you about AI for social impact. And I'm sure you've heard so many great things over the past 2 days from wonderful people about the business side and the ethical side and the impacts for all the different aspects of our life. So we're here to talk just a little bit about social impact and the moment we're in. So I have a few little slides for you here. So bear with me a moment as we get things moving. Okay. So we're here to talk about AI, which is just about the most modern and forward-looking product you could possibly imagine. But before we do that, I would like to go all the way back to Florence, Italy, in about 1500 or so, and think about the Mona Lisa, right? The most famous woman in the world. So as she was sitting for this portrait by Leonardo da Vinci, what do you think she was thinking about? Do you think she was thinking, wow, this Renaissance is really something? I'm so glad to be alive during this time of intensive technological change. Boy, that's going to have a lot of impact on future generations. Probably not, right? Okay, so what about him? Do you think he was thinking about that? Maybe. Do you think he was considering his role in the Renaissance and how people would talk about him hundreds and hundreds of years later and either, say he was contributing to the good or the ill of society? Maybe. And if there's any art historians out there, you may actually want to flag to me and say there are thoughts that those are actually the same people. We won't talk about that in this conversation, since it's not art history conversation. So what is the point? What is the point of talking about the Renaissance when we're in this time of rapid technological change? The point of that is when you are in a paradigm shift, like we are in right now with AI, you don't always recognize it. And in fact, the term the Renaissance wasn't even coined until the 19th century. So the point there is when you are in a shift like we are in now, we have to pause and reflect and think about what that means and what's our responsibility to making sure that the revolution is actually good for everyone. So, what does that mean? Related to AI or any technological innovation of late, anyway, computer ones, we have a certain list of responsibilities. So here's a list of what I think of as our main responsibilities. So we have to think about bias, and I'm sure there's been a lot of programming on that these past few days. We have to think about the bias in our algorithms and what does that mean? We have to think about the equity of the benefits of the technology and who will benefit from the new changes that are coming. If our safety, safety of society, the safety of our children. Related to that, of course, is privacy. How will these tools enable or harm privacy? Trust, which relates to the other two. Are they trustworthy? How are we measuring the trustworthiness of these tools? Ethics. What are the ethics that are going into building these tools? Who's thinking about it? Who's making sure things are safe? Then there's transparency. How are we actually assessing these tools? Who's deciding and who is keeping track of what? And then finally, regulation. And this in the previous talk, we were starting to talk about the EU and who is making the rules, who's paying attention, and who is going to make sure that these things are safe. So going back a little bit before AI. Remember that guy? Remember what he's holding? Just imagine if you could go back and whisper in his ear when this was the first iPhone about what this might bring to society, and perhaps what are some guardrails that maybe we would have put in place at the time if we had thought about it. But even more importantly, this guy. What would we say to him if we could go back and talk about what social media would do to our society, in particular to our children? I think that we would probably have some conversations about guardrails that would be good to put into place and the risks and benefits of these kind of tools. But I think nobody says it better than Dr. Joy Buolamwini when she says about AI, whether AI will help us reach our aspirations or reinforce the unjust inequalities is ultimately up to us. In other words, if you're on this call and you're listening, you are one of the people who gets to make a decision about, are we going to use this tool for good? Or are we going to repeat the mistakes of the past and only look back and say, darn, I wish somebody would have said that at the time? And that's us. We're the ones that say that at the time. Okay, so now I just want to shift a little bit and talk about AI startups. As mentioned, I am an AI founder, a marketing person. If you would have told me a little over a year ago that I would be here telling you about my AI startup, I wouldn't have believed you. That's how fast things are changing. And I also think that's how exciting the time is for people who want to get involved in this space. So when we think about AI startups or startups in general, usually think about this guy, right? That's what a founder looks like, right? That's what a tech founder looks like. Mm, not really. Getting a little sick of that guy, to be honest, and his police vest. So I want to propose that we think about who should be at the table now and who should be talking about being an AI founder a little differently. So what I did is I have several people that I want to introduce you to, who are people that I know. I can't say they're all personal friends, but they're people I know and I've met through my journey as being an AI founder and an advocate for women in AI. Sorry, slides are coming along. So I propose that we instead look at this person and say, this is what an AI founder should look like. This is what I want to have my AI founder look like. And for those of you who don't know who this woman is, she's pretty amazing. So her name is Mitzi Perdue. And she's an heiress. She's an heiress of the Sheraton hotel chain, and she was also married to Frank Perdue of Perdue Chicken. So she is an incredible woman with an incredible background with degrees from Harvard. She's a war correspondent. She's in Ukraine. She is a mental health advocate. So she's probably one of the most interesting people I've ever come across. And she has a new initiative, which is called Mental Health Global, where she is leveraging AI to deliver mental health care to people in particular in combat zones or in crises where, like the Ukraine, where there's just no way that these people can get the kind of trauma care that they need. So she is someone that is an AI founder that I've met that I think is amazing. So that's Mitzi. Here's another founder. This is Eunice. She is an incredible cross-continental woman who lives in London, but her company is dedicated to lifting up data scientists in Africa by working with them to make sure that they are part of the AI revolution, the AI economy. And so she works with companies across the world to build sustainable AI solutions that also have social impact and are giving back to the very scientists in Africa who are often overlooked in these types of spaces. She's really cool. And then this final person is actually a personal friend as well. Her name is Amanda Goodwin, and I met her in Boston during some of our AI, Women in AI events here. And she is applying AI to childcare situations and mostly related to how difficult it is to be in the childcare business. It's one of the most difficult businesses to be in as a worker. It's underpaid, it's often extremely stressful. And she sees great advantage and great potential in using AI to solve problems in that industry. So I just wanted to say that these are three badass women who don't look like that guy with the vest and are doing amazing things. And they're really great people to know. And then there's me, not as interesting, but I'm doing stuff with legal tech. And I am having the blast of well, the time of my life with this and meeting so many amazing women and people like all of you out there on this call. And so, just as an example of how we can use AI for good, and for social change, I will tell you a little bit about what we're doing at our company, describe.ai. The first thing I will tell you that it's a completely free service. So this is no kind of sell at all. This is just us seeing a problem and wanting to do something about it. And I would say that's the thread that I see with these amazing women who are solving these problems or using AI to solve problems is they've seen problems in their professional life, whether it's, war-torn trauma to teenage girls who are lost both parents and need support, to caregivers, to sidelined developers in Africa. They're women who saw problems and understood that AI could be applied to that to solve the problem. So it's this common thing that I see across women that of course we want to make money, we want to be successful business people and all that, but we also want to solve problems that affect more than just us. Okay, so that's me. Um, and that's our logo. And so we have a little slingshot in our logo and it's kind of fun and I think you'll see why. Okay. So the problem that I got interested in solving is what with AI is what we call the access to justice problem or the justice gap. This is a worldwide problem. It is not just the United States, but in the United States, it's particularly insidious and it has a lot to do with historic inequities, racism, all kinds of problems in this country that are very long standing and very systemic. So this is a quote of myself where I say, basically, we have 5 billion people across the world with unmet justice needs. And that's a grave injustice. Like, if you really just stop and think about what that means, that's just unethical, it's wrong, and it's something that could be fixed with AI. So that's an injustice that we should try to fix because it's wrong, but also it's an incredible opportunity for social entrepreneurs like myself. And legal tech is a very, very interesting space right now, and there's a lot of really good work going on in that space. So just to talk a little bit more about the justice gap and what that actually means, and I'm sorry, but I will be throwing a lot of numbers up at you. So forgive me in advance for that. Um, 92%. So these are just some different ways to look at it. Okay. So if you look at 92%, that's of low income Americans. Okay. So that's people below the poverty line, which is, a very low threshold in this country. So for 92% of the legal needs that those folks have, they do not get help. And this is in civil legal problems. So in this country, people know that you have a right to a lawyer for a criminal case. You do not have a right to a lawyer for a civil case. And civil cases can be extraordinarily impactful on your life, family law, Tennessee, housing law, you name it. So 92% is a really disgustingly high number if you think about it. And then if you look at the middle income Americans, you think, well, okay, maybe it gets better. Okay, maybe it gets a little bit better, but not that much better. And it's not that hard to be considered middle income. It's the poverty limits are very, very low. So between 40 and 60% is the estimate between of how many civil legal needs are going unmet for that group. Okay. That's still really high. And another way to look at this number is to look at what happens with people who are in the criminal system and they are represented by a public defender, and 90 to 95% are pleading guilty. I will go out on a limb and say that does not mean that 90 to 95% of those people are guilty. No way, right? But that's a separate conversation. So let's look at it a different way. That's a lot of numbers, okay. It's hard to kind of understand just plain numbers. So this is Fenway Park. Anyone from Boston knows this is our beloved old and kind of strange baseball stadium that we have here in Boston. And if you fill that place up to the rim with humans, you have about 45,000 people in that space. So imagine that was filled up with low income Americans who had a need for some sort of legal help, civil legal help. How many lawyers do you think there would be to help all those people? Those people are queued up outside their office waiting for help on something serious. How many lawyers? Wow. 10. 10. Think about that. Think of 10 lawyers, no matter how good they are, trying to serve that many people. And you can just see how ridiculously big the gap is in this country. So that's the sort of social aspect of it. You look at it from that side and say, okay, this is a really bad system. And nobody likes the system. Lawyers don't like it, judges don't like it, certainly litigants don't like it. It's not a healthy system, and we all know that. So you could look at it from the societal side and say we really need to fix that. But there's another way to look at it too. You can actually look at it from the side of the market. And when you have a market that is not served to this extent, there's also a lot of revenue and a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs to find novel solutions and to find ways to help serve these needs. Because maybe some of these folks, and I would include myself in this group, can't afford, the $600 an hour or whatever the going rate is these days, depending on where you live, but you can afford something, right? And you can afford to pay some amount. And so that is where legal AI becomes really interesting, because AI is particularly good at mimicking some of the ways that human beings solve problems. And some of the things that happen in the legal system are very rote and are very simple, and it could actually be managed by AI. So that's where things start to get really interesting. But when you see a market with that much unmet need, they call that a latent market. Like it's pretty exciting just from a pure capitalist perspective. So what does it look like? This is legal tech. Um, Legal tech again is its own little microcosm. There's a whole lot of AI going on in legal tech for the reasons I just said, in that you can use some of these tools to reproduce things that usually would take a great deal of thinking by humans, which is why it's so expensive. So these are numbers that are projected. We can't know for sure if they're right, but so far everything is tracking. So you can see there is a huge market out there that is largely untapped. And so there's a lot of really interesting things happening in that space. Okay, and I'm almost done. But I wanted to say one more thing. Remember this guy, right? We met him earlier. So he's from the show Silicon Valley. In case people don't know, he's an actor. He's not a real startup guy. But he's so indicative, of the way we think about it. And it made me think about women and women pulling a seat up to the table. And, I realized that's something that I had to do is, I walk into these events. I was at one last night, with all these startup folks, and, maybe I'm not out of central casting for what AI startups are supposed to look like, or AI's founders are supposed to look like. But I find that that can work to your advantage if you know how to use it. And so there's, I think, my favorite quote of all time, and I'm going to share it now. And I promise I cleaned it up a little bit. That guy, we want him to go away. Remember that? And it's time for him to move off the stage. I think it's time for someone else. And so this made me think of my favorite quote by none other than Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States. And she has this great, great quote. So she says, we have to know that sometimes people will open the door for you and leave it open. Sometimes they won't. And then you need to kick that beep door down. So if I would close with anything, and I hope this theme came through, is that women are going to be the ones who remember, I think, to keep the ethics in AI, to ask the questions about what we're trying to do now, so that the future we can all look back and say, well, we did play our part. And if people aren't letting you up to that table and they're not letting you in the door, then you're gonna need to kick that door down or pull that chair up. And I'll be sitting right with you, and we'll figure stuff out together. So thank you. That's my talk. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much, Kara. Oh my goodness. It was amazing to learn just how much of a great force that AI can be for good. And yeah, it is such a pleasure as always, to have you come and speak with us. So thank you for sharing your expertise. And we've also dropped your LinkedIn in the chat. So as always, please make sure to connect with Kara. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate being here, and have a great weekend, everybody. And yes, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love talking about this stuff. So
Thank
hope to see you on
you.
there. Thank you.
Bye.